Now, who wasn't around the decade before? But today it has more than 120 outlets. So in the midst of Kodak, you have Boku. 2 years ago or 3 years ago, we had a cash scarcity. Which company benefited from that? OPay. Before then, OPay used to be for a few people, but then that crisis happened and people realized that with OPay you can get your money quickly, immediately, blah, 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 blah. Today, OPay has more than 50 million or so accounts. So would there be a crisis? Yes. Would there be people who turn crisis into opportunity? Yes. Would there be people who will continue to wail and shout when there are crises? Yes. In that same period, in fact, in over a decade ago, maybe President Ghana, for those of us who are in Lagos, didn't exist. But today they are in most of the major urban locations, selling their supermarket stuff, right? We used to think that soft drinks is only Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola. But Biggie has shown that you can still come late to the market and still create impact. And this is the same Nigeria where inflation is high, insecurity is high, there is low traffic, there is the many things we all complain about. For some entrepreneurs, in that picture, it's not showing you well, but in that picture you will find main one. When we're all complaining that SAT3 was only, Nigeria was only submarine cable, energy was low. Got a number of investors to invest in Nigeria, created main one, as the main one cable, all the way from Portugal to Lagos. That was the beginning of internet explosion. That you have global and you have. And so the point I'm making is you can see different things. And so building an ethical business is from you choosing to say, let's fight this environment. Even in this environment, I choose to be business. And the economy and your consumers will want to do things differently. So far, they do it excellently well at the senator and the right. So the basic needs of Nigerians, I think, present opportunity for us to create businesses that thrive. If you look at the last slide you did was based from that figure, we looked at food, beverage, tobacco, restaurants account for 50.4% of the average spend. Of the spend of the average Nigerian. So the average Nigerian spend 53.4% of his income on food, on beverages, on going to restaurants. Restaurant will include all these delivery food. Now, when you add transport, accommodation, furnishing, clothing, that becomes 80.5%. So 80.5%. When you add education, health, it becomes 92.8%. And when you add ICT, that's a mobile phone, and personal care, it becomes 99.4%. The average Nigerian spends 99.4% of his income on these things. Food is roughly 3.4%. Transport, accommodation, healthcare, furnishing, and clothing, and that gets to 80%. Education, health gets to 90%, and then ICT, personal care gets to 90%. That's 9%. And so it's starting a business. You want to look at starting a business where people are spending their money. You know, whether you do 010 or 011, chances are that you will eat at least once a day. Chances are that you will wear at least one cloth a day. Chances are that you will send, you will call someone to take that. So that's where you look at your business idea. And you look at it as a balance sheet. So we are taking clothing, for instance. We want to be the one that will plant the company seed. I don't want to be the owner that will find the total demand to the primary production is poor because we want added value. Value is added at the secondary and the tertiary. The cocoa farmer is the poorest. Your Cadbury, your chocolate company are the richest. The groundnut farmer is not the richest. The groundnut oil companies are the richest. And so that's the way to think about it. But think about it as a value chain. And that's also where you want to be in that value chain. And as you think about the opportunity to think of Africa, there's what they call the African Continental Free Trade Area. So we have the African Union. So Africa is 54 countries, all formed into a union. It used to be OAU, now is African Union. And the African Union has this idea of the African Continental Free Trade Area that let all 54 countries be able to trade among themselves. So that the cloth you sell you do in Lagos, you can sell it in Abidjan, you can sell it in Kampala, in Uganda. Free trade of goods and services. And so with the African Union, your market is no longer Lagos. Your market is no longer Nigeria. Your market is the entire continent. That's 1.4 million people. Flutterwave. We all know Flutterwave, right? Flutterwave is that payment online system formed 2016. Flutterwave today is in 32 countries. 32 countries. There's a company called Seamless HR. That is Seamless HR. Seamless HR is in 23 African countries. And these are all companies that are created by people who are, as of today, they are all under 40, which is created them when they were in their early 20s, created for Lagos, but now relatively global. And so Africa is an opportunity. And as you think about your business, think of it as a business for Africa. And technology allows you to do that. You know, growing up, our moms and dads, they typically have just one shop. But those that are aware of it, some of you they have also have multiple shops. But they have just one shop, and that one shop is in one street. So the entire market is that neighborhood. But today, you and I, you're on Instagram, you're on Facebook, your market is not that neighborhood. I know someone who lives in Ondo town and who teaches Yoruba language to kids in the US. And as of 2024, when I met him, his monthly income was $5,000. Multiply that by 1,500. That gives you what he has every month. Now, he lives in the old town, not in Lagos, so not shouldn't be that expensive. But all he spends is a laptop and internet connectivity. Now, his day job is as a teacher. teaching Yoruba in one community school. But his income really is coming from Zoom, teaching Yoruba to kids in the US. So your market is not just your street. Your market is not just your local government. Your market, by virtue of internet, can be global. And so as you think about ethical business, don't think of it as just something you can do, something you need to do small, and you're only doing it for Muslims in MAPAMA. No. Even if you are doing it for Muslims in MAPAMA, I would say, are in different countries. They are no longer in Nigeria. And so think about the African continental free trade area as an opportunity for you as you go about your business. And lastly, every crisis presents opportunities. And I'm happy of this because, as I said it, I will say it to myself. So some years ago, I was watching news, and they said at the port that the customs caught some shipment of arms that was coming into Nigeria, and they seized those arms at the MAPAMA port. And like many of us, I was like, wow, thank God these arms were seized and they didn't get into wrong hands. So months after, I met a friend of mine and an Indian friend of mine at the lobby of the building. And it was with some Israeli guys. And he said to me, he went to make a pitch to the National Security Advisor. It was the same TV that I saw, that same story that I watched, that he also watched. And while I was praying that, thank God, the hands were caught, this was the business opportunity for a screening and monitoring system. And that was what we went to pitch the National Security Advisor. Now, I didn't follow up with him to know whether he won or not, but that would be a multi-million-dollar contract. So every day, we see crisis. NEPA has not been working for years. Some people have turned that to inverter opportunity, some have turned into solar opportunity, and some of us have turned into talking and we will just pay. We'll pay for inverter, we pay for solar, while some are benefiting from it. So every crisis is an opportunity. And so for you to create an ethical business, you've got to focus on two things. One is you need leadership that is transformational. Leadership that can turn water to wine. And then you also need an organization that is resilient. An organization that can withstand crisis. So those are the two ingredients for you to turn an ethical business into a successful business, irrespective of the time, whether it's a time of COVID or a time of crisis. Who are those that benefited from COVID? Globally, we talk about Zoom. Because before then, not many of us use Zoom. Yeah? But even Nigeria, let me use an education example. It was only in 2023 that the NUC came up with the guidelines for online universities. Before then, what you had was open and distance learning. Today, an entrepreneur, Sim Shagaya, who started Konga, from Konga went to USC. Today, he runs or he owns Viva, an open university. Viva has more than 17,000 students in less than 2.5 years. Many of our private universities struggle to have 3,000 students. So, from the crisis of COVID, came the acceptance that can do a lot of technology. Now, seeing China has moved from Conga to USA, and now it's the Viva and open university. At mid this year, well over 10,000 students. 5 weekends. I mean, there was an article this week or last week that listed more than 30 federal institutions that had less than 1,000 students. More staff than students. That's the reality today. So in that same environment, someone has created an online university that has more students than staff. And so that's about turning crisis into opportunity. I'm just saying this so that we all don't live with the impression that it's a tough environment. Yes, and it will continue to be tough. But in the middle of that, you have Lina, you have Boku, you have Flutterwave, you have Preserviano. These are companies that are doing well in the middle of this. And so you need to have an organization that is resilient. And resilience is like what you call a bouncing, I suppose that I describe that as a bouncing ball. When you squeeze a bouncing ball, you press it to still bounce back. That is resilience. Resilience is when our organization is good. The ability to withstand shock and still make progress. That's what makes for a resilient organization. And so, the ability of the organization to anticipate, prepare for, respond, and benefit from crisis. What makes for a resilient organization. And that will also make you to build and develop an ethical organization. Because being an ethical organization is difficult. Where people are cutting corners, don't want to. Where people are not paying fair wages, you must. Where people are not taking care of the environment, you must. You don't want to make profit and destroy the planet. You don't want to make profit and destroy your people. And the chairman said, planet, people, profit. And so when you're creating an organization, you are going to battle with people who have all arsenals at their means. And so you've got to be a resilient organization. And to be a resilient organization, a few principles. First is you must lead with empathy. You also must lead with integrity. Empathy means you put yourself in the shoes of the staff, the client, the community, etc. But you must lead with integrity. You must be truthful in all that you do. You also must embed ethics into your strategy. So being ethical was the part of your core strategy. It's not an afterthought. It's not a convenient thing to do. It's a must do. When I was in Accenture and up to now, Accenture never used to do a lot of work in the public sector because of what it takes to get work and even what it takes to get paid after you've done the work. So it was a conscious decision. And we know what that means. And so it's got to be clear that this is who you are, this is what you stand for, and factor that into your. You also got to prioritize ESG, environmental, social, and governance, and also stakeholders management. Because if you are focusing on the planet will involve stakeholders and the community. You must focus on working with them, understand their needs, and how you can support. You must be the organization to be resilient. You must elevate compliance, not just as a regulatory requirement. You know, the Secretary Sector told us about the bills is working on, and now it will compel companies to not just have internal auditor, but to have cyber security auditor, to have data privacy. Those are regulatory requirements. Ethical business will do those things, even without the law asking it to do so, because it's the right thing to do. So they see those as strategic imperatives, not just as regulatory compliance. And lastly, they build adaptive, purpose-driven organizations. An organization must have a purpose. If you know your purpose, then it's easier to plan around it. If you know your purpose, then it's easier to plan around it. One of the companies we all know is Walt Disney. Walt Disney has Mickey Mouse, and they have the Disney thing, Disney parks and co. The purpose of Walt Disney is not to make money. Their mission statement says is to make people happy. Because when people are happy, they will spend. When people are happy, they will come back for another ride. They will buy Mickey Mouse t-shirts and go. They will watch the film and watch the film and watch the film again. So know what your purpose is and let your purpose reflect your striving. Now, to build ethical enterprises in uncertain times, you must define your striving to be anchored on your core values. What are the core values of the organization? And so I talk about what this thing. That's that mission statement. I look at their core values, to go around customer service, customer and that's where you must define your organization. So there was a time in the past that before you join a check, they will confine the check, they will look at the signature, they put the check under mercury light, etc. People are issuing your money, right? But today, they no longer do that. They're giving you your bank, your wallet in your hand. Just for you to be But don't, when you take an Uber, it means you have to invest in the car, you have to invest in a driver, you have to invest in a mechanic, and many other things that come with having a car. But that's being just joking. Now and I'll give you a practical example. Schools. So I chaired the board of the school. And that school, we have a primary school in here. And pre-COVID, that primary school was always closed. Post-COVID, not so good. And why? Took us a while to realize it. OPI is a working area. In the past, people to work 5 days a week. So they bring their kids. But post-COVID, they stop coming to work 5 days a week. So they no longer bring their kids to school. Some of them are working remotely, so they've taken their kids to schools near their. It took us a while to realize it. But what happened today? We have set up a school. We have buildings. Fixed costs. We have staff. Fixed costs. Because for every classroom, you need to have teacher. Whether that classroom is 20 students or 15 students, fixed costs. You will pay Lagos State as a land charge. Fixed costs. Legal, the local university does not have my mascara protecting fixed costs. So think about that between your business. And that's what I say, what cost was the fixed and what cost was the variable. So I run a consulting. Our experts spend not more than
I see all the before, but she says she's not trying.
But we have over 55 subcontractors that we call to join our projects, 1 million in Nigeria. And then we have another 37 who do the So if you have 37 of 5, the company was yours. Now we decided that we were able to do employment. But that means you're paying them, paying pensions, you're doing that, and you're doing that, and then you're asking for sick leave, all of that. So think about which cost you want to face, which one you want to do. Because if you want to run a resilient business, there will be ups and downs. And during the down, you can't say you will not pay a check or pay salary. And those are the challenges that affect ethical businesses and even all businesses. But even more so, ethical business. Because remember, ethical businesses, you have a responsibility to your people, not just to profit. So whereas it's easier for me to say, I want to sack, an ethical business will think twice because you have a responsibility to people. Build cash reserves. Build cash reserves. So always have reserves. Because there will be, even in the Bible, there is 7 years of fasting and 7 years of feasting. And we also know that in the Quran, the prophet Yusuf, and so there is never a time when you don't need to have reserves. So build reserves, knowing that there will be some challenges once in a while. Diversify your products and your services. Diversify your products and your services. The richest Nigerian is not from the southwest, It's not from Lagos, but most of the businesses are in Lagos. There's a reason why. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. If your entire business is Lagos, the day Lagos is flooded, there is no business. If your entire business is in the north, the day there is a crisis in the north, there is no business.